This is Greg Locke. He put out a sermon recently where he accused his congregation of being possessed by demons, and he decided to accuse a bunch of televangelists like Kenneth Copeland and Joel Osteen of being demons in human skin. This is part 2, but you don't have to see the other parts to understand what's happening here. I try to make these independent of each other. So Locke is about to tell us about the branches of witchcraft, according to his bizarre, warped view of it. Let's get into it.
You got witchcraft, that's the control branch. You got divination, that's the revelation branch. Then you got sorcery, that's the power branch.
What does that even mean? Are these like branches of the military?
Sorcery is where the power's done. That's where you have telekinesis, telepathy.
Does he really believe this stuff? Oh my God. Yes, he does, as a matter of fact. He really does. He believes that people are capable of moving things with their minds. No joke.
That's where you have things like astral projection. Do you realize that's real? That's not Smurfs. That's real.
No, it's not.
That's not Little Mermaid stuff. That's real.
I don't remember astral projection being in The Little Mermaid.
It is real.
No.
And somebody's car horn is honking, saying, amen, preacher, it is real.
No.
So please, turn that thing off. But these 3 branches are not what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about the first branch, the witchcraft branch, the control branch. You know, divination, sorcery, and witchcraft is mentioned so many times in the Bible, it would blow your mind, both Old and New Testament, combining them together, how many the number actually is. And don't quote me tonight because I didn't count them, but I'm blown away by the absolute amount of witchcraft, sorcery, divination that is mentioned in the Bible, and God's people want to turn a blind eye to it like it's no big deal.
Because it's not real. There is absolutely no evidence, none, that witchcraft is real. All we need is a little proof.
Did you know one of the number 1 areas of the world in which witchcraft is propagated is from the platform of churches? Because the devil transforms himself and his ministers into angels of light. So they talk real good. They get you into healing crystals. They get you...
Yeah, I was saying this earlier in another part, but Greg Locke believes that he is capable of doing all of the things that witches are capable of doing, all the divination and the telekinesis and all of that stuff, except for Jesus. He believes that he gets his power from God, where witches get their power to do this stuff from Satan. So he's basically like a witch for Jesus, pretty much. That's why he's talking about all this stuff.
So they talk real good. They get you into healing crystals. They get you on yoga mats. They get you thinking everything's all pie in the sky, all rosy. You can keep your dream catchers. You can watch your Harry Potter movies. You can burn your sage, burn your incense. It's no big deal. You can go like witchcraft pages. It's not that big a deal. That pastor's crazy. You can go to a fortune teller. After all, you can talk to the spirit of your late, great, dead grandmother. No, you'll talk to a demon that's a familiar spirit that pretends to be your late, great, dead grandmother. And pulpits are propagating witchcraft all over America. And I ain't going to do it. You hear me? I mean the words that are about to come out of my mouth because they're biblical words, so don't get squirmish.
Don't get squirmish? The hell does that mean?
From a biblical sense, quoting the Apostle Paul to some degree, I will be damned if I let witchcraft come out of this pulpit. I ain't missing out on God's power. I ain't missing out on God's blessings. I ain't playing them games. I'm not coming under the condemnation of God for some clicks and likes and shares. Not me. Not me. I ought to preach this on Sunday. I would say within that crowd out, but I think people are looking for this kind of preacher. They're tired of all this mamby-pamby, limp-wristed, skinny jeans nonsense. They want somebody to stand up and say, okay, here's what the Bible says. I've had a gut full of, I see this mess all over the nation. I got to deal with it every day. Every day of my life, I got to deal with these crazies. They find my phone number, call me in the middle of the night, come threaten, kill my wife, kill my...
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah, Greg Locke was saying that he got a threat. I think he's on the Twit saying this stuff, which, by the way, is supposed to be banned from the Twit, but I don't know why he's on there again. Don't give Locke death threats. Don't give Locke death threats. I have to say, though, I don't know that it was even like a non-believer. It's very possible that it's a believer who just believes differently from him. I mean, we have no idea who's giving him these things. But I have to say, man, when you put out hate and anger and viciousness and fear-mongering nonsense the way that Locke does, you can expect to get that same kind of attitude back. That's how this works. I am not justifying threats. Do not threaten anybody ever. It's not good. Don't do it, please. But when you put this into the world, it's expected. Locke is creating people who do this kind of thing. This is their way. This is how they act. It's really no surprise that it came back on him like this.
My life, I got to deal with these crazies. They find my phone number, call me in the middle of the night, come threaten, kill my wife, kill my kids. Bring it on, Skippy, bring it on.
Yeah, like I said, he talked about this on Twitter. From my understanding, he called the cops, told them what was going on. The cops showed up because somebody said that they were on their way or something like that. Don't do it. Don't make threats like this, please.
Bring it on. I ain't playing with these witches. I ain't playing with these warlocks. I ain't playing with these demons. I ain't playing with these spirits. I ain't messing around with this culture. I'm telling you, I'm going to call it what it is. I'm sorry if that chaps your hide, but you're in good company because it makes the devil mad too. So don't show yourself too much. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this control situation. I'm going to tell you how witchcraft is accomplished. Here's our problem. We think witchcraft is sitting on a pentagram, burning a bunch of candles, in some kind of yoga position, chanting to the devil. Okay, that's the sorcery. That's the divination. I get it. You know what witchcraft in the Bible is? Check this out. We're already in Galatians chapter 5. I might as well read a verse, praise Jesus. Look at verse 19.
Dude, so at the very beginning of this, he said he was going to be talking about Galatians 5. And I know Galatians 5 is the chapter that says that if you're circumcised, you can't be a Christian. That's what I know of it. That's how I recognized Galatians 5. I was really hoping he was going to reach that verse, but this is literally the first time that he's even referenced the Bible through this entire thing. We are an hour and 10 minutes into this sermon. I mean, granted, part of the sermon was spent singing and all that stuff, the first 30, 40 minutes or so, but we're pretty far into the sermon and still no mention of any Bible verses whatsoever, okay? This is his first mention of the Bible since the sermon started. All right, let's hear it.
Now, the works of the flesh, say flesh, that's something you're born with. That's something you got to get fixed, right? So I believe in spirits, but I believe there is a flesh. And I believe if you bring your flesh into subjection, but you still have problems, a spirit is manipulating your flesh. He says the works of the flesh are manifest. Here's how the works of the flesh. He's talking to God's people, by the way. Now, he does say at the end of the verse, if you practice these things on a regular basis, you cannot be saved. So a lot of people say, well, Brother Locke is teaching that you can lose your salvation. No, I'm teaching you if you practice witchcraft, you ain't never had no salvation to begin with, is what I'm telling you. You can't lose what you ain't never had. Now, the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery. Yeah, we know that's it. Fornication.
It's kind of weird to me that he took this position. He said, if you practice witchcraft, you're not saved, period. Full stop. End of sentence, right? But he believes in a faith-based system, not a works-based system. So the Bible has two different verses, right? One verse says, you are saved by grace and grace alone, so that no man can boast about being the best or whatever else. And then another verse says faith without works is dead. So you need to practice what you preach. You need to work your way into heaven or you won't get there, basically. Salvation comes through works. So there's this big debate about whether or not God wants you to work for salvation or if he thinks that you can be saved just through grace, just because, you're baptized and now you're saved forever. That's a Bible contradiction, and different churches take different positions. Greg Locke believes in a faith-based system, kind of. So he says, once you're saved, you're always saved, but you have to continue believing in God or you have to continue practicing or working to further God's kingdom if you want to be saved. So he pretends to be faith-based, but he's really halfway works-based a little bit, basically. And here's another interesting little contradiction that he's got here. Listen to this.
Ain't lose what you ain't never had.
Hold on.
I'm teaching you, if you practice witchcraft, you ain't never had no salvation to begin with.
Once saved, always saved. That's his belief. But now he's kind of contradicting himself on that. He is a theological mess. Like, nothing that he believes adds up or is internally cohesive or anything. Like, it's all complete confusion. Jazzy Wolf, a big part of why these evangelicals don't like Catholics is because Catholics believe in a works-based system. That's interesting, right? Yeah, I mean, the Bible contradicts itself on this stuff, so there's no way to really... I mean, it's just whatever you choose it to be, honestly. It's not... It doesn't really matter which one you choose. The Bible supports both positions, so...
Now, the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery. Yeah, we know that's it. Fornication. Yeah, get them pornographers, preacher. Uncleanness. Lasciviousness. Idolatry. Yeah, get them idol worshipers. What's the next one? That's not a work of the devil. That's a work of the flesh. You're born with a motivation to witchcraft. Every one of us are born baptized into witchcraft.
So you're born evil. Wow, this is weird. Jehovah's Witnesses just came out with a video that was saying something similar. You're born as an enemy of God. What is it with all these religious organizations coming out and calling babies evil lately? How strange.
Every one of us are born baptized into witchcraft, sorcery, divination. He said these are the works of the flesh: murder, adultery, lasciviousness, gambling, pornography, yada, yada, we get it. And then right in the middle, he's like, yeah, witchcraft. You know what witchcraft is? It's mind control, situation control. It is literally, the biblical definition is, you are trying to control people, outcomes, situations, and destinies of others.
That's interesting. He's kind of wading into cult territory right now. Wading into, like, what a cult is and what it means and stuff like that. That's pretty interesting to me so far.
That's why you can inadvertently not even know it. You can speak a word curse over somebody just by saying something about them you don't even mean to, but death and life are in the power of the tongue, and once you speak it, it's there.
So overturning Roe v. Wade is building Satan's army? That's a good point. I like that. But let me just step back just a hair, because I want to hear that sentence again and think about it.
Know it. You can speak a word curse over somebody just by saying something about them you don't even mean to, but death and life are in the power of the tongue, and once you speak it, it's there. That's why some of you have a spirit of failure, because your dad said things like this to you growing up: you'll never amount to anything, nobody's ever going to love you, you ugly, you fat, you unhealthy, you got crooked teeth, la 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 la, and you believe that word curse because it puts you under a spell of witchcraft.
Well, that's kind of weird. I don't think many people's dads said those things to them. I mean, mine said those things to me, but I think that's exceedingly uncommon. And I feel like Greg is kind of revealing a little part of his childhood that maybe he didn't intend to reveal. Let's see, 1:11. That's so sad, honestly, dude. 1:11:30. Everybody's dads are absolutely awful. Thank you for whoever recommended this video to me. This is really good.
Am I right?
What the hell was that?
Spell of witchcraft. Am I right?
Okay, it went really high-pitched for a split second. That was really weird. Did anybody else hear it go really high-pitched? Yeah, did he have helium? No, I think it was just, I think that was just like an audio glitch that came through for a second. It got fixed. That was funny.
Put you under a spell of witchcraft. Am I right? And so he said, witchcraft, control. It's accomplished two ways, but it only has one result. Biblically, and let's even say historically and practically, witchcraft has one goal. Here's what it is: domination. Witchcraft needs to be in control of the situation. Now I'm going to slow down. Am I making sense? That's the goal. Domination. Control. That's what it means. Witchcraft control. That's why on Sunday nights we call out the spirit of witchcraft and the spirit of witchcraft control. Because there is sorceristic, if you will, witchcraft, and then there is fleshly witchcraft, which is trying to control people.
What he's describing here is actually how we differentiate standard religions from full-blown cults. Their level of control and the control methods they use to control people. That's the difference between a religion and a cult. In a religion, you can go there every Sunday and sit in the pews and listen to the preacher or whatever, and then go home and go about your day, and it's no big deal. And if you want to miss a week, it's okay. Who cares? It's fine. In a cult, you have to cede every part of your life to the religion. You have to give it over. You have to change everything about your personality to match up to what the cult wants it to be, replacing your authentic personality with the cult personality. That's what makes a cult different from a religion, and that's what Greg Locke is describing here. In reality, witchcraft isn't even real, so, like, who cares? Like, none of this matches up with reality, but I digress.
It's witchcraft. It's divination. It's a form of sorcery. So in order to get domination, there's only two roads that get you there. There are two forms of witchcraft that get you the ultimate goal of control and domination. They are, follow me, manipulation and intimidation. That's the only two roads. Sometimes people will have both. Most of the time, it will be one or the other. And I'm not going to get thrown to the bus for sounding sexist, but I am going to say this. Most of the time.
Oh, no. You buckle up for this one. In fact, I'm going to write this down prematurely. 113. Let's see here. Locke says something sexist. Not a big surprise.
Get thrown to the bus for sounding sexist, but I am going to say this. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, the woman has the manipulation, the man has the intimidation. I'm just telling you the facts. I've done too much marriage counseling not to know that's the facts. It's not all.
Okay, well, there are general personality traits that society encourages in different people or in different genders. So, I guess that's not that sexist, I guess. It's not an inherent quality about people or different genders. It's just society kind of programs this stuff in. So, yeah, not really that surprising.
Always the truth. It's not always a golden buzzer moment. But for the most part, you can figure out that the woman will try to get to control through manipulation, and the man will try to get through control by intimidation, but both of them have the same end result, domination, and both of them equal one thing: witchcraft. Witchcraft.
So witchcraft is a personality trait? Is that what he's trying to communicate here?
So let's talk for a moment about how to get to the goal of domination. How to get people to think the way you want them to, act the way you want them to, respond the way you want them to, believe the way you want them to. That's why there's so much manipulation in the pulpits. Now let me give you some low-hanging fruit. The media is a form of witchcraft so big because Ephesians says that the enemy, the devil, Satan himself, is the prince of the power of the air. How does he dominate a culture? Through manipulation. He manipulates you through movies. He manipulates you through books. He manipulates you through music. He manipulates you. Listen, if you don't think that a singer can get on stage and dominate and control the whole crowd, you've never been to a real concert. Beyonce's a full-blown witch and tells the whole world she's a full-blown witch.
Wow, so he's saying any form of control or parasocial relationship of any sort whatsoever, any form of unity or sharing an experience, that is all witchcraft. Is that what he's telling me?
On the front cover of a magazine, riding a red horse in defiance to the deity and the sovereignty of God. And you wonder, why do people get under a spell when they go to Beyonce's concert? Because she performs witchcraft through singing manipulation that brings about domination of people's minds.
Or people just enjoy listening to her music. I mean, the same could be said about Greg Locke, right? That's the thing. Greg Locke recognizes that he puts people under a similar quote-unquote spell, where people just become enraptured with what he's saying. You know, he's a very charismatic speaker, and people really get drawn into what he says. But Beyonce, when she does it, because, you know, when people enjoy Beyonce's music, it's witchcraft because it comes from Satan. But when people enjoy what Greg Locke is saying and they become enraptured with his sermons or whatever, it's not witchcraft. It's God doing it. It's God's effect on things. That's the difference. One comes from Satan. In one case, the power comes from Satan. In the other case, the power comes from God. So yeah, Greg Locke recognizes that what he's doing is witchcraft adjacent. It's just the power comes from God.
I don't even know why I did that, but I was listening to a certain song. Yeah. Manipulation. Let me show you how easy we come into manipulation.
I don't know why I did that. I was just listening to a song. What? That's weird.
We have convinced, not we, because we're awake and not woke. Can I get a witness? The media has convinced the world through manipulation in order to produce control and domination that Joe Biden actually won the election.
Oh my God. Here we go. Okay, 115-20, roughly. Biden didn't win the election. Here we go, getting into politics again. By the way, this guy did not cancel his tax-exempt status. His business license is still active. His nonprofit business license. I'm just saying. He almost certainly just claimed that he was giving up tax-exempt status without actually dissolving the business license, because he wanted people to get off his back and stop reporting him to the IRS. He did not give up tax-exempt status. Not yet, anyways. And he's had plenty of time to do it.
So here's what happens. They do everything in the media to manipulate your mind and then to intimidate you if you go against the narrative, because their media manipulation, which then leads to bullying and intimidation, and cancel culture is 1,010% intimidation. The media uses that manipulation, intimidation for their solid goal of domination.
So any situation in which you have to face consequences for your bad behavior is witchcraft. That's what he's saying. Anytime you do something that upsets somebody and they shame you for that, that's witchcraft. That is against God's will. That checks out. What a cheap way of getting people to stop criticizing you. Or what a cheap way of blaming others for your bad behavior, basically.
They own the hearts and minds of the people, especially the children, because they use two roads to get there. They manipulate and then they intimidate so that ultimately they can dominate.
For the record, yes, Greg Locke is doing exactly what he's describing other people doing. He manipulates and intimidates and dominates on a regular basis. This is very common for Greg Locke, yes. But he gets his authority and power to do that stuff from God, where other people get theirs from Satan. That's the difference. So he's not a witch because his power comes from God versus Satan. Kitty, what are you doing? Get down. Go. You got to get down now.
Now, did you know in the Bible there is for lack of terminology and not to be irreverent, there's a divine pecking order. Now, the world doesn't like the divine pecking order, but we're a Bible church, and so we don't mind God's divine pecking order. And here's the divine pecking order in the family. Christ is the head of the man. The man is the head of the wife. And the wife is the heart of the home and the children. That's what the Bible teaches. Now, if that be the facts, and it is, have you ever noticed how your home sometimes can be filled with witchcraft because somebody has an agenda to dominate the other spouse, or the kids dominate the parents, or the parents dominate the kids, and at the end of the day, there's only two roads for all of that to get to domination, and it's through manipulation and intimidation.
So, if a woman isn't in subjugation to her husband, then she's a witch, is what he's saying. Crazy shit, man.
For example, when I say that a woman in a marriage can be under a spell of witchcraft and not even recognize it, 9 times out of 10, she will be the one that manipulates in various ways. Because you know, as the shirt says, when mama ain't happy, yeah, you know why? Because everybody's like, don't wake mama up. Why? Because there's a spirit of witchcraft that has entered the house inadvertently, even in godly homes, that tells everybody in there, she controls us by the very fact that we already know, don't push her buttons.
Yeah, but didn't he just say that women are supposed to be managers of the children and then the children are managers of the home or whatever? That's the pecking order that he just described. So naturally, children are supposed to be in subjugation to women, according to his belief system. And that means when they don't follow her instructions, there's going to be a price to pay, right? So I completely disagree with this. I think this is deeply wrong and ridiculous. But according to his belief system, this is actually perfectly in line with how it should be, according to his belief system. Now he's contradicting himself.
Because she's manipulated them into the mindset of being intimidated that, hey, I'm the one in control. Don't mess up. Don't get out of line. Kids do the same thing. How many of you have children that are under the age of 3? Would you put your hands up? Okay, a few of you. We know who to pray for.
God, those poor kids.
A little bit. Here's what's interesting, Jesse. You know this. Little baby will wake up. He'll wet his little drawers, and he'll cry, and rightly so. So mama comes in or daddy comes in, whichever's on duty, and they change that little diaper, and they pick that baby up, and they cuddle that baby, and the baby, of course, loves that warmth, that attention, that affection. So the next night, the baby doesn't even wet itself, but it knows if it cries, it's going to get cuddled, right? You came forth of your mother's womb speaking lies. There's nothing wrong with you. You're changed and you're not hungry. You just manipulate to get your parents to respond, and it works, doesn't it?
No. Babies need love and affection. That is a requirement for young children. And the only way they have to communicate with people is through crying. That's it. How else are they supposed to communicate? They don't know how to talk, or, well, at that point, they probably are picking up some words. At 3 years old, they shouldn't be wetting themselves, though. I potty trained Kylie at 2 years old. The day that she turned 2, I started potty training. I got rid of the diapers, and it took me about a month. It was January, I remember specifically. By February, she was potty trained. So 2 years old is usually when you do it. Sometimes babies can go up to 3 years old, but by 3, they should be potty trained by that point, for the most part. Yeah, that's about the time frame. By 12 months, they're probably taking their first step. I think what he's talking about is a little bit older than you would expect, or than I would expect. Lucky you, my 3-year-old finally potty trained. Yeah, I'm not saying that's the case for every baby. You're right. It's not always easy. And sometimes, they get a lot older before finally managing to potty train. Sometimes they just keep wetting themselves and just can't get a grip on it, and I get that. That's okay. But I'm saying Greg Locke is talking about a baby who likely cannot talk. I mean, it kind of varies from kid to kid and age to age or whatever else, but it seems to me that's what he's talking about, right? Crying is their only way to communicate at a certain age, at that age. Crying's the only way they have to communicate, and they do need love and affection. That is not manipulation. That is crying for something that they need. So Greg Locke is outright telling people if they don't need something, do not hug them. Do not give them attention. Is that right? That's what it seems like to me. Deeply, deeply wrong, and I am honestly heartbroken for the dude's kids. Honestly heartbroken for him.
The manipulation is, the intimidation is, you ain't gonna sleep at all tonight if you don't do what I say. And babies are born with the ability to manipulate.
This is part of his babies are evil thing. This is part of it. This is him trying to convince everybody that babies are evil.
A mom says to a little boy, I've got friends coming over. We're going to have some coffee and some cookies and cakes and snacks. But I don't want you running around hyper, and you can't have any cookies, okay? You hear me? Maybe when everybody leaves, Junior, no cookies for you. Tell you what Junior knows. To ask Mama, can I have a cookie when all of her friends are sitting around the cookie table?
At a certain at a certain point, children do start getting manipulative, and the reason for that is because they're learning moral reasoning at a certain age. Say, between the ages of 3 and 6, they're learning moral reasoning skills. They're figuring out how to get what they want, and eventually they're learning higher level morality, and they learn that morality from the people around them, from the things that happen around them. You'll see things like babies reach for something, right? And they can't get it, so they throw themselves on the ground as though they've been hit, and they start crying in an attempt to blame somebody for hurting them, because they know, if somebody hurts them, then the parent is going to come in and save them and do something about it. So they'll do things like they'll throw themselves on the ground as though they've been hurt, so that the parent will ensure that they get what they wanted. That's moral reasoning. They're learning moral reasoning skills and doing the wrong thing in that case. And when that happens, you have to set it straight. You have to make them understand that's not okay, and you don't get what you want when you do the wrong thing, basically. So this does happen, absolutely. This definitely happens, what Greg Locke is describing here. But this is just a natural part of human development. This doesn't mean babies are evil. It means you have to teach them what the right thing to do is. Very distinct difference here.
Because it's harder. You laughing because you got children, right? And you did it too. Because it's harder for Mama to say no to Junior, because Junior already knows how to manipulate to get what he wants. And what he wants is a cookie.
Yeah, this is all part of moral reasoning. They have to learn moral reasoning skills. That's just how babies work.
He manipulates so that he can dominate.
It's not witchcraft. It's just standard human development. It's brain development.
A woman, and we'll get to the men, don't worry. A woman will do things like this. Oh, you won't let me get my way? That's cool. Sleep on the couch, Big Daddy.
Okay, that's a toxic relationship right there. What would somebody, not get that they want that would be so dramatic that they would have to sleep on the couch? That's crazy. And yeah, Big Daddy, that is gross and creepy and disturbing, and please don't say that. It sounds like it's a bad relationship, honestly. It sounds like they are in a toxic relationship to me.
And a woman will use and abuse the glory of the sexual marriage bed to get what she wants out of her husband. Because
Ooh, wait, is he going down this road right now because he heard there was going to be a sex strike as the result of the Roe v. Wade decision? Is this like one of the examples of pastors coming out and condemning it as evil? That's funny.
She knows that manipulation will fear him into domination.
Is there a sex strike? Yeah, there's supposed to be one. I don't know that it's going to have like much of an effect because usually couples agree with each other politically for the most part. So, the strike may not have much of an effect because Democrats are Democrats and vice versa, Republicans with Republicans, but still, it may do something. Who knows? Greg Locke wants a world where women are slaves. Yeah, pretty much. That's accurate.
Oh my goodness. I better do the dishes. Now, you ought to do the dishes whether that's happening in the house or not. And maybe if your lazy tail would do some dishes, it would happen in the house more. Somebody shout amen. But I'm just saying, a woman can use her body for the purpose of manipulation. You say, well, I just don't think that's true. There would not be a prostitution industry without it.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. I think there would be, actually. But aside from that, maybe somebody just doesn't want to like get intimate with you if you're acting like a scumbag. Do you ever think that maybe it's actually your fault that they don't want to sleep with you because you're a scumbag? Maybe you're just not like helping the situation. No, it's got to be the woman's fault. It's the woman's fault that nothing is happening. Absolutely. That checks out.
There would be no red light district. They are able to use their body to manipulate so that ultimately they get money so they can dominate. It's the whole point. And by the way, witchcraft is always in line with sexual improprieties.
Witchcraft is in line with sexual improprieties. What does that mean?
Wherever you find witchcraft, you'll find pornography. You'll find some evil, foul spirits that we can call out on a Sunday night. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways that people are manipulated. People are manipulated through money. Your boss can say things like this. Well, I'd love to give you a raise, but I just don't know if you're really doing things around here the way that I want them done, yada, 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 schmata. And he can use the manipulation of money to intimidate you, to make you think that you're going to lose your job. So at the end of the day, he dominates you and you do exactly what he wants. And you usually end up doing it a whole lot more for a whole lot less. Why?
I'm thinking what he's talking about right now is called destructive influence. This is the influence continuum. It was written by Stephen Hassan, which is the same person who wrote the Bite model. The influence continuum shows the difference between destructive or unhealthy influence and constructive or healthy influence. It's like he's alluding to it, but not quite getting there. Like he doesn't quite fully understand what he's talking about. Well, on an individual level, unhealthy or destructive influence includes things like trying to program in a false cult identity, using conditional love to control people. Like, if you don't stay a member of Jehovah's Witnesses, then I'm not going to be in your life or love you anymore. Using hate rather than compassion. Basing your decisions on doctrine rather than your own conscience. Using solemnity, fear, and guilt rather than creativity and humor to control people, and inspiring dependency and obedience in people rather than free will and critical thinking. That's on an individual level. Leaders tend to be narcissistic or psychopathic, which means they have trouble identifying with or feeling empathy for the people underneath them. They're elitist and grandiose rather than knowing their own limits. They're power hungry rather than empowering individuals to attain their best self, if you will. They're secretive and deceptive rather than trustworthy, and they claim absolute authority rather than accountability. On an organizational level, organizations tend to side with elitism rather than egalitarianism, which means They believe that they believe themselves to be the elite of the elite, and they don't want equality. Everyone outside the religion is inferior to them. It operates within authoritarian structure rather than with checks and balances. It operates in a deceptive and manipulative way rather than with informed consent, trying to convert people through deceit. Tries to clone people rather than encouraging individuality or diversity. It has an ends justify the means mentality rather than a means create the end mentality. It preserves its own power rather than encouraging growth. And it believes there is no legitimate reason to leave, rather than people are free to leave. So that's destructive influence versus constructive influence. And that seems to be what Greg Locke is kind of alluding to here without fully understanding.
He dominated you through manipulation. Do you want to know so many men in the business world sleep around on their wives? I told you things would be a little PG-13 tonight.
Do men in the business world do that? I assumed it was like roughly at the same rate as everybody else. Maybe it's a little bit higher. I mean, what does he mean by business world? I guess it kind of depends on what he's even talking about.
Because they've learned when they're out on a business trip to manipulate women using certain tactics and intimidation factors so that they can get what they want. The end result is domination. And anybody who's ever lived in the world 5 minutes understands that principle. And there's a lot of ways that people manipulate. But for a man, many times in a marriage, he wants to get through denomination. Yeah, that too. Through, dominating her. And he doesn't necessarily use manipulation. He'll use intimidation. He'll raise his voice. He'll flex his, you do what I say, woman.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've seen that before a lot. My dad used to do that kind of shit.
Getting quiet up in the house. I don't want to see none of this. It's in here. You'll throw a dish.
Kind of like Donald Trump. I don't know if you guys heard about the January 6th hearings a while back, but Donald Trump famously threw a dish at the wall that had ketchup on it, and his people had to clean up the ketchup. Kind of funny. I have to imagine the guy was eating chicken nuggets.
I'm in charge of this house, you hear me? I pay the bills, you can get out. Intimidation. Talk down to her like a dog. Why? Because ultimately, it forces her into submission. But guess what you missed out on? If you would be a biblical husband, you would never have to force her into submission because your love for her would attract her submission automatically because women are responsive. And if you love your wife as Christ loved the church, she will reverence you and love you and respect you even when you don't deserve it. And so we've raised a generation of people that manipulate and intimidate for the purpose of being able to dominate. They want to control the outcome of somebody else's lives. Children, listen, we all got them. And we've all got some handfuls sometimes. Children learn very early on. All I got to do to get my way or keep getting my way is pitch an absolute rebellious fit. But here's the...
Yeah, that's because they're going through their moral reasoning phase. I mean, all kids go through that. Everybody went through that. Even you, Greg. Everybody goes through their moral reasoning phase at some point, and they pick up on what they see around them.
Problem. 1 Samuel 15:23. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. It means it has the same results and the same judgment from God. And so they learn, if I want to get my way, I'll just pitch a fit. You're going to ground me? I'm going to pitch a fit. You're going to take something away from me? I'm going to pitch a fit in hopes that the manipulation, which turns very quickly into intimidation, will slow your roll so that they can be filled with household domination. And it's amazing to me how many children raise their parents in America.
Okay, wow. I guess he's going down the whole I don't like how people raise their kids route at this moment. Interesting.
I'm just talking.
I know. That's why I'm here, to listen.
Happens in the church world. Some of you grew up in traditional churches where it happens. You know why the church never went forward? Because you had a board of people that intimidated the pastor. Oh, we are the Council of Nicaea. You ever notice that churches that have 15 people have like 12 deacons? They only had 7 for 30,000 people in the book of Acts.
So what he's doing here is encouraging authoritarianism. He wants authoritarianism. He'd rather people follow a single person's instructions rather than people vote on the best course of action. Generally speaking, democracy is the best way to go because, for the most part, people tend to even each other out. So the extremists will even each other out, and you'll end up with a moderate position, generally. In the United States case, people at the top have taken control and pushed the entire country further toward the right. There is no center at this point. The Democrats are even right-wing at this point. There is no center or left party anymore in the United States because the people at the top took control of it. But the point here is Greg Locke is heavily encouraging extremism. He's encouraging authoritarianism and top-down control environments, which is destructive and dangerous and the exact type of thing that I would expect to see from an extremist pastor.